Hello, welcome to video 1 of Rime of the Frost Maiden Icewind Dale DM Diary. Before we start, I'd like to preface and say this is the first time that I ever ran a written campaign. But I will say that I've been playing Dungeons and Dragons as a DM for a very, very long time. The purpose of this video is to ensure that you, the watcher, kind of get an idea of how a DM runs a written module, kind of my first experience with it, and what I had to add into it. On top of that, you'll see that I've borrowed some suggestions from some other DMs that kind of helped out and added to the story. The other reason that I need this to work and be on the internet is because sometimes my players can't make it, and instead of taking time to recap and going into too much detail or spending a lot of time talking, this way I can talk to them about what happened without spoiling anything, and just going that way. Now, with that being said, I didn't actually get to do session 1 this time around. Instead, what I had to do is I had to do something that we call a session 0. And in a session 0, it's usually kind of more loose, free-flowing. People kind of figure out the bumps and what they kind of want their character to do and change and do all of that. So that's kind of where we were going with that. And because of that, I had to write a little story in order for that to happen. I am not a fan of having the party know each other immediately. I like the party members to kind of meet and learn who each other are and their intentions and what they're hiding and all of that, because it builds character tension between them throughout the story. It's tension that I don't have to create. It's tension that I don't have to build. I don't have to write it. It's just their interactions are what causes that. Sometimes conflict, sometimes not. You know, sometimes they get along really well. So it depends on, your characters. Okay, so I had to write a story. This is how long the story was. Now, my idea is that I needed them to get together, complete a simple task, realize that there's a larger danger, and then take them to the first town. In order to do that, I stuck them all in a snowstorm. They were all lost. I explained to the bard, Parley Stewmaker, who is a halfling bard, that he's wandering around in the snow and he couldn't find his way. I explained to Grimm, the owl person, who's also lived in Icewind Dale all his life. He just lives in the northern part with his tribes. He was also lost in this blizzard. I made them roll a few perceptions, and they finally caught sight of some conifer trees with a fire. What they did then was Parley is a very straightforward character, very upbeat, very friendly, so he just marches into camp. What he sees is he sees a large trader with a large brim hat and a very thick coat. He's leaning against the backs of 2 oxen that are facing away from one another that are sleeping. And he's looking at a wet map, and he's very upset. Beside him is a dwarven nobleman who looks miserable and cold. So he introduces himself. The traveler, the tradesman, he says his name is Hal. His oxen are Corbin and Dallas. And then the dwarf introduces himself as Gaul. Now, so there's 2 players. Gaul, the sorcerer, and what is his name? Again, God. Parley, the halfling, the bard. So Grimm finally introduces themselves after seeing everything was safe, and they let everybody know that this is their land too, and they're happy to share the campfire as the blizzard rages on. Grimm is a barbarian. So the traveler, the tradesman, tells everyone that he had to abandon his wagon because of the snow, and they had to take cover in the trees. And he says that he'll pay them a meager 10 gold to go get his wagon, help Corbin and Dallas latch onto it, and then he will lead them back to the city, one of the towns in 10 towns. What they find out very quickly is that this man, Hal, does not know directions very well, and it comes to find out that he's never been here. So they don't trust him. So instead, they agree to do it, but after a few persuasion rolls and all of that, they say that they will do it as long as they can get some cold weather gear, and if they can take part in selling the furs or whatever's on the wagon. Again, high rolls, of course he agrees, and they wait till the snow dies down, and then off they go to the south where they left the wagon. As they travel, I don't really have anything happen. They come up on the wagon and they see that it's empty, and Hal runs up to it, looks into the wagon, and inside is a winged kobold who stabs him in the chest with a spear, a very small spear, and then tries to fly away poorly. Hal screams and falls to the ground and thinks he's dying, and Parley and Gall look him over and he's absolutely fine. It's just a wound, but Hal's convinced he's going to die. They chase down the kobold, hold him down, and find out that his name is Vutu. Vutu informs the party that he was helping a group of kobolds steal for their Lord Ibu, and that they were just taking it back to a cave in the south. Again, this is a very simple and direct kind of quest, but it worked. So they convince they actually scare the kobold into taking them to the edge of the encampment where they'll do their attack. They leave Hal behind with his oxen to wait for the wagon. So then they go forward and they use Vutu to search out a trap. It was a spike trap, and they get to go around it. And then they get to the front of the cave, and they see that there are two kobolds standing there guarding the cave. And then they go inside. So then Grimm flies to the top of the cave and lands and waits. And Gall is on one side and Parley is on the other. And they make some noise, and out comes the first kobold. And then out comes the second. The second one, Grimm flies down after a few checks, is able to lift up in the air and pull them away. Right? Parley uses a mind spell to damage the second kobold, and then Gall finishes off the kobold with another mind attack, psychic damage. Talk about how the brain pops on the inside and it goes and it collapses. Grimm, on the other hand, drops the one kobold from the sky and it falls into a disgusting heap. So there's two down. After that, Grimm sneaks into the cave and sees that there's one kobold hiding, waiting for them. The kobold doesn't see him, so he dispatches that one very quickly. And then they go into the main part of the cave and they start exploring. They find one part of the cave that's really small. They block it off, and then they explore the rest of it. What they find is all of the stuff that had been stolen was in the front of the cave, and they really do talk about not exploring the cave and just kind of grabbing the stuff and running, which would have been absolutely fun. It would have just thrown a very big hitch in the whole exploring the cave and finding the treasure. It was my fault for putting all of it right there in the front. So they go to one section and they find that there are these cages in one part of the cave with a big bunch of winged kobolds. And what they found with Vutu is that all winged kobolds in this cave system and in this group or in this tribe are looked as lesser. They're treated like garbage. They're beaten, they're caged, and they're only sent out to do certain things. I guess I'm just gonna yawn. So that's what they find in the first room. Then they come back and they actually talk about, again, leaving. They don't explore the rest of it. They're like, here's all the things, we can pack it up and leave. So then I'm pretty sure that if I don't do something, they're just gonna leave. So I make the blocked off part start getting knocked down, like people are knocking it down, something's knocking it down. So Gall and Parley leave the cave to hide, and Grimm hides inside the cave. And what Grimm sees is this larger kobold comes out, and he's wearing all the wings from dead kobolds as a cloak. In one hand he has a heart, like a human heart shaped item that is made out of black ice. Black ice in this world is a very bad thing. It is cursed, and most people shouldn't pick it up. It's all over Icewind Dale, and if you need to figure that out, I guess I could do like a lore dump on that at some other time. Anyways, all they needed to know was the black ice is bad. He's holding the black ice, his hand's black, and these other two kobolds follow him. Gall has made a spike of black ice show up, but it's just an illusory image. And so that makes him a little confused for a moment, and then Grimm jumps through the illusion and attacks, and so we start the battle. Now, this is the thing that I did. One of the things that I hate is that I hate that goblin bosses and kobold leaders are just as weak and kind of lame as their underlings. So what I did is I took something from Matthew Colville, where he created a better Goblin Boss by amping up its stats. And if you want to know what that is, I can link the video. But it gave him legendary actions. It gives him a bonus action and all of that. So I moved it to 2 attacks instead of 1. He gave him a bonus action. Ibu, this lord, his bonus action is he would scream, "Get in there!" Or "Get in here!" and 2 kobolds would appear. Kobold minions. They had only 1 health. And then he had a reaction that if one of his kobolds fell during somebody else's turn, he could use the black heart and bring them back to life for 1 hit point. And then he had 3 legendary actions. One of them was, and they just happened in rounds, right? And I'm telling you, I just stole this from Matthew Colville's, or borrowed it, or whatever you want to call it. The first one is that my idea is that he would tell them all to move, right? So then they would all get to move whenever he wanted, so I could position them around the players. Another one was focus on that one, which means that it would move. They would all focus fire on 1 player, and then the last one was attack. So whatever they're near, they attack, right? So I had a plan, and it was going to go swimmingly. Grimm did the first attack, and he brought in 2 kobolds, and everything looked good. And then Parley stuck his head in the cave, cast sleep. Kobolds normally only have 5 hit points. These kobolds had 1, so out, right? It's like, okay, no big deal. They keep fighting, and again, this kobold leader is pretty beefy, so I'm not too worried. And plus, I had a small trick in my sleeve. But they keep fighting him. When it comes back to his turn, he summons 2 more. So there's already 4 kobolds. And I'm feeling pretty confident that this might be a very long fight, or at least it'll be an intense fight. Gall sticks his head into the cave, sleeps the other 2. Okay. So, next turn. Grimm is still trading blows with the main one, and two more appear. This time Parley sticks his head in and casts Fairy Fire, which of course makes them easier to hit. They're just illuminated in fire. So that was good. So they start fighting, and they wear down the boss until he runs away. I have him running away. At this point, Grimm turns and kills two of the sleeping ones. Or no, the two living ones. And then Gaul runs in, fire bolts, natural 20, the boss, and he falls dead. Right, so I'll roll a save that I've made up, and the black heart activates, and the boss starts rising. The rest of the time that this boss is coming back up, Grimm is killing all of the sleeping kobolds. He just kills them all, right? So eventually, they try to stop the boss from rezzing, but he resurrects. And when he resurrects, he brings back, and I rolled a d6 and only got 2. He only got to bring 2 people back. They dispatch both of those very quickly. While that was going on, I was trying to figure out what to do with the rest of the story. But they dispatched them very quickly. They freed all of the winged kobolds, brought them together, and they told them that Vutu was their new tribesman, their leader, and that Vutu needed to go get Hal and Corbin and Dallas and the wagon and bring it to them so they can fill it full of the stuff, and they'll camp in the cave, which Vutu agreed to, and they started preparing. Before they went into the cave, and Grimm was already inside hiding, Parley and Gaul had seen a giant shadow fly over. They didn't know what it was. They didn't know where it came from. They just saw that. So Vutu goes out. Takes a really long time. Vutu comes back and tells them that the oxen and Hal are gone, which they're kind of shocked about, but whatever. So then they convince all of the kobolds to go out, pull the wagon back, and while they're pulling the wagon back, they go and they check the surroundings, and they see the imprints in the snow of the two oxen, Corbin and Dallas, and then you see the imprint of Hal, and then you see on the outside these large wings that kind of touch down on the snow, and like they picked them up, like they had been attacked by something, because there was no trace of them after that. So they assume that some kind of giant winged animal has stolen these, or killed, or attacked, or whatever. So they bring the wagon back, and then they spend the night there. During the night, one of them sees in the far distance a large elk. Another one sees a figure. And another one doesn't see anything, really. They gather all the stuff on the wagon the next day, and then they, with their help of the kobolds, they move all of these belongings for 15 hours to the town of Bremen. It ends with them coming down the hill overlooking Bremen in hopes that they can find some kind of respite there, sell the items, and then figure out what they're supposed to do from there. So that's what happened. Now, things that I would have changed in that aspect, nothing really. I feel like it was a straightforward one-shot that really kept people interested and kind of introduced the world. I'm a little curious in what they're going to do with the kobolds. This party, I've played with them multiple times. They have a tendency to enrich a lesser race, what people would consider a lesser race, and give them a foothold in this world. So in the Icewind Dale world, kobolds aren't looked at as nice, but they're bringing them in, 6 of them to be exact, to this place. But I don't think I would change anything. I really like when they do this kind of stuff. Gaul is neutral, lawful neutral, so it's very interesting. He seems to kind of just do what's necessary, even if it seems cruel. Grimm, the barbarian, sometimes does things that are necessary, but you can see that there's a hesitation, and Parley Stewmaker is completely mortified by all of it, because he's just a cheerful guy that likes to cook food. His main goal, one of his character things, is that I've wrote and designed a better cooking system and put cookbooks in the world that he has to find, and kind of increase that a little bit. I will tell you that if you follow Matthew Colville's formula, and you're doing it for a level 1 party, do not give your boss 3 attacks. If I would have given the Cobalt leader 3 attacks, I'm pretty sure no one would have lived through that. Also, if you summon minions, summon 1. I summoned 2, thinking that they could take them, but at the same time, if they didn't have sleep, they would have been overwhelmed and they would have died. So good on them. They did a really good job with that. But sometimes your party can't think that fast, and you've got a ton of kobolds and then they're dead. So make sure that you really pay attention to that. But so far so good. We're going to start session 1 next Sunday, and we're going to see how that goes. It's when I immediately realized that there's not a lot of... There's the story in here, right? But there's not a lot of meat to the story. The thing is that I truly believe that they write these in such a way that it's a skeleton of what you can make it, right? How much you want to put into it. Because for Bremen, I put a lot into this. If my players watch this, I don't know if I'll probably pull back the curtain and talk about the parts that I added in and the parts that are already in here. Maybe. I don't know. I'm not sure. But if you need that link to Matthew Colville, I'll put it somewhere. I'll make sure that you have it. But this is the first time that I've done something like this, and I really think it'll go well. So until next time, I hope you have a horrible week, and play more D&D.